Welcome back to the Sweat Elite podcast, another episode of Training Talk. This is the Osaka Marathon pre-race podcast episode with Luke. We are less than 24 hours before the Osaka Marathon, and we're recording this, of course, in Osaka, Japan. We are dressed in our Onsen robes as we've come straight from the Onsen. Luke and I are pretty relaxed right now. For those that don't know what an Onsen is, Luke, try and explain.
Essentially, it's just hot cold therapy, basically, for Americans especially that would be familiar with that. But it's so much more than that here, right? Like when I think of hot cold therapy back in the States, I think of and I do it too. I'm not making, I love it. It's going to sound like I'm making fun of people, but I think of like gym bros and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's more about, you made a good point about how, I think you were here last time and it was after, it was like 6, 7 p.m. and just a whole bunch of businessmen just work, at the desk all day, stressed out of their mind, and then boom, straight to the onsen. And it's so intertwined into their culture. It's such an important part of their culture. You go in and, men and women separate, got to go in, strip right down. And that's almost like, there's something like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not therapeutic, but it's like, you're stripping away literally everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say?
Definitely, yeah.
And you're just going in there and everyone's just, doesn't matter, businessman, athlete, whatever, you're just in there. Same thing. People not really talking, you just go in. There's hot baths, really hot baths, some ice cold baths, and then there's those little showers. You got to sit down, just sit there, shower, wash yourself off, and just, oh man, it's amazing. It's just so therapeutic. You go in there, you're so relaxed. You come out, you're even more relaxed. It's just, it's amazing.
Yeah. You're not allowed to wear anything in there. You can't wear underwear, can't wear swim tights, swim trunks, anything. You're not allowed tattoos. Yep. Luke and I both have small, I've got a couple of small ones. Luke's got some medium-sized ones. We have to tape them up. No one said anything about them, at least, questioned the tape, so we've been all good at this point. But yeah, it really almost seems like it's that through the day, you do your work, like you said, you sort of almost get a bit dirty with everything you're doing, and then it's just a complete cleanse because you see people at the end of the onsen experience, you sort of briefly touched on it, you sit down on these little plastic stools with a shower hose, and you've got these soaps and stuff next to you, and you see these guys for 10, 15 minutes completely scrubbing themselves down, almost foot to toe to head, and it's a fascinating experience. But anyway, this podcast isn't necessarily about the onsens. We just say that because if you're watching this on YouTube, we have our robes on because we've come straight from the onsen, and we do have our technical meeting, which I made fun of at one of the recent marathons I went to, and I paid the price afterwards when I dropped a couple of bottles. That was CIM, but we do learn all about that in a couple of hours. But we're looking forward to tomorrow. And I guess this first half of the episode, before we switch over to the Shareholders Club, we'll talk a bit more about, what tomorrow's going to be like, I guess, what the experience has been like since we've arrived, and maybe a bit about what our goals are as well. So, yeah, Luke, I guess we can do an overview because you had, what I would probably call a perfect situation in terms of build-up through until when we took that little 4-day break. And just before we took that 4-day break, you got a little bit sick. And then since then, and up until now, it's sort of been a little bit sort of up and down. You've done some good workouts, but be good to talk a little bit more about that, or as much as you can share.
Yeah. I kind of described it to you. It was almost like a series of unfortunate events, all at the same time. Any one thing wouldn't have been that serious, but it was a whole bunch of things compounding. Took the break, got sick, felt terrible. Bit of stress with work and personal stuff, compounding, kind of affected the sleep, so not sleeping well, and that's a big thing for me. We talked about that, how everyone's different. For me, if I don't get my 8 hours at least, it affects me so much, especially running. And it's just kind of compounded over the last few weeks, and the sickness turned into, actually, it's so funny because it was right around the time when the 5K, it was almost the same thing, this sinus infection. Just massive pressure all around the sinuses, no energy. Oh, it was awful. And that's only cleared up. It's weird. It's as soon as I get to Japanese air, get away from Houston, it actually seemed to clear up.
Well, you said on arrival it was still rough, and then the next day you said it felt a lot better. Yeah.
It's like the next day. It's unbelievable. And I mean, that might have something to do with, I think it's the timing too. Like I had it for quite a while. But I think, in Houston, high pollen and, humidity and whatever, I'm sure that doesn't help sinus infections and stuff. But yeah, so I had all that going on, and that seems to have cleared up at least. Still a bit stressed with with the other things I talked about, and with the jet lag, like not helping.
Yeah.
So I'm running on empty in terms of sleep, but I don't know. Yeah, the more I talk about it, the more it just kind of sounds almost like lame in a way. Like it's just like I'm not saying any of those things to make up any excuses if anything was to go wrong, or where like the build has been next to perfect and ideal. Like all those gays saying like haze in the barn, whatever, it's all, the work is all done. It's all done. So I'm still gonna go for a big PB, go for sub 225. I think quite a good bit under, at least what I'm gonna go for, and then we'll see.
Yeah, the jet lag thing's real. It's interesting because there's other podcasts of guys around our levels that have talked about how traveling to these races where you've got a massive time change. I believe ours is 16 or 15 hours.
15 for us, yeah.
And you don't fully realize because there's jet lag and then there's jet lag. And what I mean by that is there's going to the UK where you go forward 6 hours, and then there's going to Tokyo, Osaka, sorry.
This is different.
It's very different.
This is different. Man.
And, I think we arrived 5 days before this race on Wednesday night, Monday race. And I thought that was plenty. And I haven't slept properly in the last 4 nights.
Same.
I think the last night was pretty good. I got 6.5, but the first 2 nights I got like 1, and then 4, and then 5.5, and then 6.5. And I feel like tonight I'll probably be able to get a decent one, but then it's also the night before the race. You don't tend to feel like you don't get the best sleep. Yeah. All these things. But I personally have always been one to not really be affected too much by poor sleep, to some extent. So I don't feel like it's too bad. But, unfortunately for you, you sort of had that, the personal stuff in Houston, and then you came straight here, and I feel you did arrive a little bit after us as well here, but it's very common, and I think in an ideal world you would arrive here probably 7 days before, but of course that's hard to do for a lot of people. You have
a daughter, we were just talking about how hard that even seems for pros, and I brought up the example to you, and I'm sure some people that watch and listen to this are very familiar with. I remember Rory Linkletter, second best in Canada, only only bested by Cam Levins, who has the fastest official marathon in all of North America. So he's right up there, top class. And it was the marathon that he ran the standard 2:08 low at Seville.
Yep.
And he has a really good YouTube channel.
Yep.
And he posted the travel to that race, and it was just like watching just a regular lad just traveling with his family, going coach, only there a few days before, struggling with jet lag. And I was just amazed. I was like, this guy's supposed to be a pro, a pro should not have to travel like that and worry like about that. But unfortunately, that's the way running is. It's not like the NFL and the NBA and whatever else. So, and again, I only say all that to say, when you and I talk about our problems, like, of course you're allowed to talk about your problems. Like, I'm not saying don't, but they're just so minor, And,
the grand scheme of things.
And they're so minor, and everyone has to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, everything I'm talking about, whatever my problem is, none of it is crazy unique or special to me, or and so it's like, you say these things out loud and you're just like, oh, just get over it. You'll be all right.
Exactly.
And then look at where we are. Like, Osaka's just this is my first time in Asia, full stop.
I was about to say, what do you think about Japan in general after 4 days?
First day in Asia, let alone Japan. And it's literally, when you think of a place in your mind, and it's literally what I thought of, like, in terms of, I bigged it up quite a bit. And it's exactly, it's such an amazing city. The Japanese people are awesome. Like, that's one thing I think I was prepared for, because I think you told me and a few other people told me, like, even though it's a big city, everyone is Japanese.
Yeah.
There's so few people that are not Japanese. Like, it's so few tourists. And I kind of like that. Like that's kind of cool, you know. It's like you're in it, you know. That's cool. I really enjoy that. Food's unbelievable. We've been smashing some seriously good food, high carb food. It's been great, and just I don't know, it's been awesome. I've loved it.
Yeah,
I've loved it so far, and just can't wait for more.
Yeah, exactly. We've been onsen hopping as well, just a little bit more on the onsen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked about this in the podcast before we came too. We because when I was in Japan last, I quote unquote discovered the onsens, even though I'd heard of them before. And I think it was my last about 5 days here. This was at the end of 2023 when I came for the Fukuoka Marathon. I did a trip around that. And we sort of made it a mission of ours to go to as many different onsens as we can in the Osaka area. So we went to a big recommendation, actually, if people ever go, come to Osaka. There's, I think the first one we went to is probably been the best one so far, the Spa World.
Yeah, Spa World, yeah.
Yeah, next to your hotel.
Yeah. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Try and explain how that looked. It was like this European style.
Yeah, people are probably, like if you tell people, so what I'm about to say, it's almost like, it shouldn't be the best because it doesn't seem very authentic, like Japanese. And so, you know, I took a picture of a more authentic one on my story, my Instagram story, if anyone wants to look at that to see what an authentic one looks like, the one here in Matt's hotel. But the one we went to, Spa World, the men's section was called the Europe Spa, right? The Europe room. And it was massive, and there's all these different rooms with different hot tubs and different saunas and you know, this, that, and the other. And one room, you know, you walk into, and I think it was called Greece, and it has all these Greek, you know, mythological characters like in stone. You know, it's not really stone, but it's supposed to be like stone carvings, and so that's that room. And then the next room was like, it was like Spain. There was like these bull riders and, you know, all this stuff. Another room was supposed to be, it was really cool. It was like this hot tub inside. It was supposed to be like a grotto from, I think it was Capri, Italy, with a stone. Like that was really cool. And just all those little things. It was really, really cool. But yeah, of course, when I say it out loud, it doesn't scream authentic Japanese. No. But it was still really cool. Like just experiencing all that. And I mean, it was great. It's funny you're talking about discovering the onsens when you came to Japan, and then you showed me the onsen when you stayed with me in Houston, not this past year, last year. And apparently we have an onsen in Katy where I live that I had no idea was there until you were like...
To clear that up, it's not exactly an onsen, I don't think, but it's essentially an onsen. Like, it's the same thing, the same ingredients. I mean, I don't exactly know... We've never actually looked into what an onsen really is. Because there's some things here that are called like a spa, but they don't call themselves an onsen, but they're almost the same.
Yeah, I guess.
So we haven't cleared that up. What your thing at Katy is essentially is the same thing.
Yeah, and that was cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
We had a feeling that this podcast would keep diverting back to the onsen, so sorry about that. But if you do come to Japan to race or just for a holiday, we highly recommend checking them out. Not because don't think about it as just a get in a hot, get in a cold. Yeah. It's observing the way people use it. Yeah. Which is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It really is. It's like a meditation, like you said, spiritual meditation.
Yeah.
It's
stripping down, like literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Like you're just down and you're just focused. Obviously you have to leave the phone, everything, and you're just focused on, I know it sounds, you know, cheesy or whatever, but it's like true. You're focused on being present, being there in the room, on relaxing, like you've no choice but to, and it's just, oh, it's so nice.
So back to the running talk. When we arrived, we met up with some Chicago Marathon / Osaka Marathon staff members. I say that because they're a sort of a sister event. They have a relationship, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. I got invited by Chicago Marathon. And we looked at the booklet that had all the start list, and we were amazed at how many people are starting this race that have personal bests between 2:05 and 2:30. There is what appears to be hundreds of people.
Hundreds, yeah.
I think I'm ranked about 100th with 2:18. I don't know, you're something like 300 and something.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, it's wild. So you've never done really a marathon with, you know, you've done some big races, like you've obviously done Boston, you've done London, they're huge races, but this is much deeper. Much deeper.
That's the difference. Level.
And you know, like, what do you tell us more about what your mindset is going to be?
I love it. I think it's great. Yeah. So a few funny things about that. I thought, because this is what I'm about to say, this is how the race used to be, right? I thought this was an elite only race. And so where we're going, there's about, including the women, say 300 or 400 elite.
I think that there's more.
There might be more.
I think there's like 300 men, I think, or 250 men, I think, in that book.
Right.
It's huge.
But there's very few women.
Yes.
That's why I say,
men, and
I
tell you why that is. Okay, so there was a race, and some people listening would know this. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some people listening have actually done this race. So there was a race that finished up in 2022 or 1 called Lake Biwa Marathon. Now, I ran it in 2020, and Osaka Marathon was more like Tokyo Marathon. I don't know if there was an elite field. I think it was a small one. But essentially, Lake Biwa Marathon was an elite-only race, men only, with about between 300 and 400 people.
Right.
Lake Biwa Marathon and Osaka Marathon basically merged, which caused Osaka Marathons... And Osaka Marathon at the time was already a 40,000 person event. But Lake Biwa, from what I understand, don't quote me on this, but I don't think it was doing well financially. And so, which makes sense. I mean, no one paid to enter the race, I don't think. When I went to race it in 2020, it said I was supposed to pay, but then no one ever asked me for it. And I emailed them and said, how do I pay? And no one ever got back to me.
No way.
Yeah. It was really strange. And another Australian I know was the same thing. It was supposed to be about $150, and that included the drink tables and all that, which is pretty good. But then they merged, and so now it's this mass participation event, Osaka Marathon, with this huge elite, sub-elite field. And you thought that it was kind of still the style of Lake Biwa Marathon.
Yes.
And that explains why the elite field is mostly men. Yes. Because I think they kept maybe the Osaka Marathon women's elite field, which must be 30, 40 or 50.
Yeah, I think it is.
But the men is maybe, I think, 300 to 400 still.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so that explains it, yeah. But you until you arrived, you thought it was just a small race.
Yeah, I thought it was just that 300 to 400 elite only race. I was like, man, this is crazy. It's kind of daunting, but in a cool way. But then, of course, it's like the rest of them, elite, and then the open field. But yeah, the fact, to get back to your question, you were talking about how deep it is. And of course, I've never been in a race this deep. Few people would be. It's probably one of the deepest in the world.
We thought last night that I think after this race, I'm definitely going to go and investigate this a bit. I would guess that this will be the second deepest race in the world behind Valencia, and it may challenge Valencia. And I think there's probably a few ways you could work that out, but I'd probably just simply look at maybe 100th place and see what time it is.
Yeah.
But I think 100th place here, 2 years ago, I was 81st in 2:21.15, and last year it was even deeper than that. So I think 2:20.00 will probably come around 100th, is my guess. And given the conditions are looking pretty close to perfect, little breezy but very cool, we may see 100 people under 2:20 potentially.
That's wild.
Which is pretty wild.
That's insane.
I think Valencia was similar. I'm going to have to go check.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know 2:25 was like 300 and something in Valencia. So yeah, that may be deeper. Jesus, but yeah, this is potentially the second deepest race in the world, because it's actually surprising when you look at the results of Chicago and Berlin. They're actually not that deep when you look at the results. Like, use me as an example. I was 2:19.31 and came 33rd, and here 2:19.31 is going to be maybe 80th. So yeah.
Maybe if you're lucky, yeah. And but in terms of how I'm feeling about that, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially if you're really trying to go those, sub-elite times, like whatever that might mean. That's what you want.
Yeah.
You want that.
It's only helpful.
Yeah. People, because that's just what happens in a race. You're technically racing against each other, but you're not. You're racing, unless you're actually going for the win. You're not. Everyone's racing together. And when you're in packs, like, everyone's helping each other out. And if for some reason you or someone else thinks, this pack's too slow, you just break off. And you know what I mean? That doesn't affect anyone else there. So it's only a good thing. Yeah. And that'd be exciting to see, how many packs, how deep the packs are for my goal paces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's, of course, it's a good problem to have, but you go to these other races and there's not going to be a lot of people that are trying to go for those quote unquote, sub-elite times. So yeah, I'm excited for that. Really excited for that, honestly.
Have you run a marathon before with the drink stations?
Indy is the only one.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you had 3 drink stations there. Well, we all had.
Was it 3 or was it 4?
I thought it was 3. I thought it was 12 miles. I thought it was around 10K, 20K, 30K just after those 3.
You might be right.
Yeah. But we've got 8 this time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Every 5K.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Which I'm not used to. Oh, wait. No, Houston. When I got the local elite thing.
That's right.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was not prepared to run that race, and I bonked hard. And the last almost the last 15K, I was like, I don't even care about the drink stations. I shouldn't have ran that race. But no, that's exciting. That's cool. Especially because we're using I wonder if... Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's just going to grab them.
Bear with me.
We're using the... So I've shared on the podcast before one of my favorite gels to use. I've got a lot of gels that I like to use. I'm not very strict with one, but I have been using Chargel, which this is actually... This is the original Chargel. So Luke's holding up on the camera if you're watching on YouTube, but it's called In. Let me see the packet. Does it say anything else on it? It says Energy In, a special jelly drink designed to supply carbohydrates equivalent to 1 rice ball.
Yeah,
that's the unit of measurement.
That's the unit of measurement. 1 rice ball.
The jelly drink provides you with the energy to stay active every day. So how I discovered this, I have shared this in the podcast before. Apologies if you've heard this before. 45 grams of carbs. 180 calories. It's about, how many grams is it in total? 180 grams. And so in 2020, when I was racing that Lake Biwa Marathon, I was having a hard time finding the gels that I was using at the time. And I asked a professional Japanese runner 2 days before the race, can you find these particular gels I wanted? And he said, you're probably not going to find them in here, but what a lot of elite runners use are the ones from the supermarket and the convenience stores. And I said, what are they? And he showed me them. And I'd seen them before, but I didn't know what they were. And then I used one on an easy run the day before the race, and I was like, it's delicious. It went down really well. And at Lake Biwa, I used them on every single table. I ran a big PB. Of course, it wasn't all down to the gels, but I just felt really good consuming them. And I remember after that race, I tried to figure out how to buy them and ship them back to Australia and Boulder, and I couldn't do it. But Chargel is essentially the exact same thing, but repackaged and sold in the US. It's just the marketing name. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be putting one of those on every table. But yeah, what else are you going to have on the tables? You're just going with them?
It depends. Reem, God bless her, legend, has gone out, she's gone a bit of walking, a bit of shopping, and she's looking for bottles for Matt and I that have the sports caps, because they're actually pretty hard to find. As amazing as Japan has been in terms of shopping, like all kinds of shopping, we're having a hard time finding bottles with sports caps.
Yeah,
which is weird.
Like the pop top lids.
Pop top, yeah. So if she finds them, I'll probably I have some Going More and I have More 10, so I might mix them up or do 1 and 1.
Yeah.
But I'm not phased. If she can't, I'll just do like a bottle of water and then strap a Chargel and just strap it to that. And then I'll have water if I need it, but I might just toss it because it's so cold. And then just smash the gels, honestly.
Yeah. And that you're going to because we have every 5K, you might as well put them in every single table, just basically for insurance purposes.
Which I will.
That's what I'm doing.
Which I will.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I won't, my mid-race fueling habits are not good.
Why do you think? It's interesting that you know that, and you shared that with me before. Are you looking to try and improve on that, or do you think that it doesn't need to be better?
I know it can be better. Like science is science.
Because you joked to me at one point when I think I had a long run where I couldn't stomach more than 50 grams of carbs an hour, and you were like, I hardly ever go that high.
50 grams an hour would be insane for me.
Yeah, wow.
Like I would be shitting my pants probably if I had 50 grams an hour. And you were talking about how that's so low. Yeah, I don't know. It's my own fault. Like the way you're supposed to gut train and you practice. I don't do any of that. And I'm just so bad at it. And I go out to a long run workout and I'm like, this is it. I'm going to gut train. I set out the table and then the workout's going so well. And I'm like, no, I can't spoil it with a gel or something. You know what I mean?
So you legitimately have a fear that it will make your stomach bad, which is super common.
Yeah, it'll just turn my stomach. So I just take very few. And then, of course, I know a lot of people are listening going like, are you stupid? You're talking about turning your stomach, but you're just going to bonk. But I don't really bonk.
No, you don't really.
Unless it's heat.
Yeah.
Unless it's heat related. Like if it's like tomorrow's going to be, feels like non-stop 30s throughout the whole race, which is single digits close to zero.
It's about 0 to 2 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely perfect for both of us.
Yeah, and so when it's conditions like that, I don't really bonk that much, and so I don't know. But I know I need to be better. I know, like if there's a lot of things that I'm cognizant of that I need to be better about when we're running, and the fueling is right up at the very top of the list that I'm aware of and I want to be better at. I just don't make the effort, and I should. I know I should.
I wonder if it's beneficial to, because I get the whole, you're doing a long run, it's going super well, you don't want to sort of take a risk, but I wonder if it's beneficial to have like a high load of carbs on like an easy run, a few easy runs leading into a race, just to gut train.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same because taking in gels or carbs for that matter or anything when you're running easy is a bit easier than when you're going high speed for many different reasons.
Yeah.
One, just handling it. Two, just the fact that you're at threshold and above or whatever, or close to threshold. And but I think that would be better than nothing. So maybe something worth considering.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm gonna make a cognizant effort.
Well, you got Boston after this, so you got time to do that if you want. Yeah,
and that's the funny thing when I think back to the last time I did Boston, which is arguably in my mind the best I've ever performed. I think on that day I had 2 gels the whole race.
And you
no water.
And that's basically explain why that's probably your best run despite it not being your personal best.
Just the way I performed. It's pretty close to my personal best.
Yeah.
For one, it's like 30 seconds off my personal best.
Yeah.
And it's like Boston. Boston's tricky, Boston is difficult. But I just felt, on top of all that, I just felt amazing. Like the whole race, never bonked, felt really strong all the way to the end. Best I've ever felt. Even I felt better at the end of that race than I did at the end of Indy, which is actually my personal best. And I think that was the best I've ever performed. It's the biggest jump I've made as well. I went from like 231, I think, to 227. And so 2 gels.
Assuming the gels were 30 grams and you probably didn't consume the whole gel because
I didn't either.
No one ever does.
I didn't either.
You've probably taken 22 grams an hour or something like that, which is very low. Yeah. Better than nothing, but it's cool. It's good though in a way. It's almost like you have, in my opinion, potentially you probably have a little bit of room to move just by getting better at that. That's not working on any sort of fitness.
You're probably right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But there's examples of people like that guy, Patrick Martin. I've interviewed him about a year and a half ago from the UK. That does marathon, 224 guy, doesn't take anything.
Yeah.
So and you're super lean. Kenyan athletes, Ethiopian athletes, they often go through marathons with taking 1 or 2 gels, 204, 205. Of course, they have less time, so they don't need as much fuel.
Yeah.
But there's examples of people that don't do it. I mean, for me though, I know for sure that if I go that low, I'm going to go way slower. So yeah.
Do you know what I think it is? And I thought about this because I thought about what you just said about the Kenyan thing. I do so many of my runs, easy runs especially, and they're quite long, that are just completely fasted.
That's what it is.
I do so many of them that are just completely fasted. There's
no doubt a lot of people that preach high carbs, they don't understand this very well.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah.
If you train, and I think it's Patrick Martin. I know it's something Martin. Apologies to forgetting his first name, but he was the same. And if anyone wants to go back and listen to that interview, about 2 years ago, 224 guy. He started running properly when he was 37. Ran 224 when he was 41, I believe. Could have had the years 1 or 2 years off there. But he was saying that he's just never taking anything in training. And he runs 224 marathon with nothing. And so if you're just completely used to it in training, which a lot of Kenyan athletes are, because you see these videos of these Ethiopian and Kenyan athletes training on these roads, and they sometimes have a minibus drive past with drinks. Oftentimes that's just water.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. Yeah. People are often like, don't they have a bus giving them stuff? I'm like, they do, but oftentimes they just want water.
Yeah. And so a lot of times they don't take it.
Oftentimes
when I look at those videos, they'll hand the ball and the lad's just like, no, get that away from me.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think, unfortunately or not unfortunately, depends which way you look at it, there's upside and downside. Because I basically convinced myself a couple of years ago that fueling works for me, I've basically trained my system to need high carbs. And so that's sort of good and bad. It's good that I feel like it helps, but it's bad that if I then miss the carbs, it affects me. And that happened at CIM. I missed 2 bottles. And that I could really tell in the last 10K when I really started to run out of gas. But yeah, your system's certainly different to mine because I've seen you do 20 mile runs with basically just a little bit of carbs and you still nail it. So I can't do that.
I know.
Yeah.
It's weird, yeah. And I do think a lot of it is down to the fasting. But then also, I just think probably a lot of it is just down to genetics, right? Everyone's just so different.
Yeah.
Everyone's so different. And I've always been like that. I remember in soccer, like lads would be like stopping all the time, like Gatorade this, that, and I'd be like, just be grand. And I'd just go all game without anything, all training, whatever it was. So I'm sure it's genetics too or whatever. But yeah, the fasted thing, I think it is a real thing too. That's certainly, it was anyway. I mean, that seemed to be a part of the Discord discussion over in the shareholders for so long. But yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. What are we doing post-race? You looking forward to your first ski session?
Oh yeah! Oh my god! Yeah, I wasn't even thinking that. I thought you were talking about the Onsen again.
Oh well, that's immediate post-race.
Yeah. Immediately post-race Onsen, and then we're going up to.
People must think we're completely obsessed. Well, we are.
Oh yeah, they're great. We're going to Hakuba.
Yeah.
Hakuba up north to ski. I have never been skiing in my entire life, so to do it for the first time in Japan is going to be pretty cool. I think.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I'm not worried about being crap at it or anything, which I know I will be.
Yeah.
But just getting up there and just enjoy. I'm sure I'll still enjoy it.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
You might not have put a lot of thought into this yet, but you have, is it 8 weeks between here and Boston? 21st of April. Yeah.
I'm really not even thinking about Boston. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So you haven't thought about what time you'll take off after this?
No.
I assume it'll just be 3-4 days or something. Yeah. Maybe think about it up in the
ski
fields.
I'm not too worried about it, honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
I've just been so focused on this. Like kind of getting that mindset, you don't want to look at the next thing before doing the first thing. And I've just been really like that.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Because I always say that it's a little bit difficult to plan recovery after marathons.
Exactly.
Because you don't know exactly what's going to go down in the race.
You've no idea.
If you really muck up your fueling, or that can be a little bit of combination of bad luck with rough stomach or whatnot, and you really blow up hard, that can cause recovery to be a lot slower.
Yeah.
Than if you feel well and you pace well and all these things.
Feel well.
So it is hard to, the old question of how much time should you take off after a marathon doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's so individualized and so specific based upon the race and the performance and the person and the fueling and everything. Yeah. There's just no, We kind of talked about that today with who was the massive Viking lad at the shakeout.
Oh yeah, Swedish guy. Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah, I don't recall.
Yeah, he was a lovely lad.
Yeah.
But we were talking about that. He listens to the podcast, and he was talking about when you recorded me doing the workout on the snowy track post Osaka Marathon, and he was laughing, because he was basically saying the same thing that I've been preaching. The difference between guidelines and rules. And recovery like that is a guideline. Yeah. It's smart to take a week off or 10 days or whatever. It's smart to do this. It's smart to that. Be aware. Guidelines. But they're not rules.
There's certainly a guideline to say don't do a marathon all out every month too.
Yeah.
But I'm doing.
Right.
But I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it.
Exactly. But all these things, same thing with the workout, hard workout, big workout, 3 days after a half marathon PB. The guideline is probably don't do that. Spend the week recovering and doing easy runs, blah, blah, blah. But I was able to look at that guideline and say, I'm not following it because I feel great, and so the same thing, it's good to have in your mind these recovery guidelines, but it's just how many times do we talk about it? Because I think it needs to be talked about every single time. Just listen to your body, your body's going to tell you exactly what it needs.
Yeah. Cool. Well, over on the other podcast, which we'll switch over to in a minute, we'll talk about our last week of training. We'll talk about a couple of challenges that we've had in the lead up. Obviously had a bit of a challenge with sleep and all that. We'll talk about taper. We'll talk a little bit about what we're planning to do more specifically tomorrow. And if you're interested in joining us over there, we've got some great conversations going over on our Discord channel. It's a paid subscription, $10 a month or $99 a year, and you access the other podcast feed where we talk more specifically about our training every week, and also chat over on the Discord channel, which is, I think, in my opinion, is perfect for people that are self-coached that maybe want to get a little bit of advice. So there's people in there. Someone asked the other day all about Boston, how to deal with Boston and how to pace it, and we were, you were in there chiming about your 10-10-5-5.
10-10-5-5.
Yeah. Which helped you run a massive PB there. So
can't talk about it now because it's not on the.
Exactly.
It's not on the shareholders.
Exactly. To join shareholders, you can find the link in the description of the podcast. It's just sweatelite.co/shareholders. But we will do another Training Talk episode after Osaka in the ski fields probably a couple of days later, because we normally do this on Mondays and publish Tuesdays. We didn't do this week because we were both traveling at the time, and then we were both absolutely exhausted. So we've done this one later in the week, but we'll do another one just in about 3 or 4 days from now, and talk all about the Osaka Marathon. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yep.
Cool. All right, speak to you all next week.